Hey everyone, today I'm going to be going over my Brutallus kill video and giving a lot of extra information as well to help you guys prepare for this fight. First, I gotta thank the guild Skadoosh on Grobulus. They actually let me into their guild run on the PTR for this. My guild does not do PTR, so I really didn't think I was going to get a chance to try anything past Kael'thas. So these guys were super awesome. They let me get in their run. Thank you a ton, guys. That was awesome of you. I'm first going to go over my approach to this fight, my gearing choices, talent choices, and some other information. Then I'm going to commentate over the actual kill video itself. You guys may have heard a lot of people saying you need 2 Feral Druids to tank Brutallus, Prot Paladins just get destroyed on him, stuff like that. That is very far from the truth. In a lot of our logs, I actually took less damage taken per second while active versus our Feral Druid. So let's take a look at these logs first. Alright, so we're going to look at the log from our kill here first. The number we're looking at here is going to be the damage taken per second while active. This is the damage taken per second while the boss was actually attacking us. So this is the best number to look at for comparisons here. So on this particular pull, we were using the Stomp Taunt strategy. So the damage taken per second on both tanks was quite a bit lower than when we were just trying the taunt at 3 meteor slashes strat. So you can see here I took 3,868 damage taken per second. Our Feral Druid took 3,886, so you actually took a little bit more than me on the kill here. Let's take a look at another one. So on this one, Feral Druid took 4,842. I took 4,973. I took a little bit more than him on that one. On this one, he took 5,397. I took 5,142. On this one, 5,173 for the Feral, 5,205 for me. Here, 5,902 for the Feral, 4,692 for me. Here, 4,336 for me, 4,876 for one Feral, 3,812 for the other Feral. This was an early Feral death, so another Feral stepped in. Here, 4,542 for a Feral, 4,245 for me. On this one, 4,236 for me, 4,927 for the Feral. Here, 6,004 for the Feral, 5,225 for me. On this one, 6,030 for the Feral, 4,433 for me. And finally, on this one, 5,141 for the Feral and 4,725 for me. So you can see, oftentimes, I was actually taking less damage taken per second while active than the Feral was. And all in all, the damage taken per second was pretty close between both of us. So there really isn't too much of a difference between Feral and Prot Paladin tanking this boss. The biggest thing is going to be the threat that the Feral brings, but if you have one Feral tank and one Prot Paladin tank, you can just have the Feral tank first, and then the Prot Paladin is going to be able to just steal his threat. And we'll talk a little bit more about ways that we can increase our threat on this fight as a Prot Paladin. There are a few things you need to know about Brutallus as a tank. First off, he dual wields and he has a 1-second attack speed with each hand and cannot parry haste. His main hand attack hits much harder than his offhand attack. He also has an ability called Meteor Slash that's going to deal fire damage split amongst anyone in a cone in front of him. And it's going to apply a debuff that's going to increase your fire damage taken. This creates a need to tank swap every 3 stacks so that a different tank and group can soak slashes while the first group's debuff falls off. The whole fight, you're going to be rotating tanks before either group takes a 4th Meteor Slash. That's at the point where the damage from Meteor Slash just becomes too high with the extra damage taken from the debuff. Tanks should be positioned in such a way that only one of the 2 groups is taking Meteor Slashes at a time, and there's a large open area for the rest of the raid to deal with Burn, which is a debuff that does a lot of fire damage and it spreads to nearby targets. The other ability you need to be aware of as a tank is Stomp. This deals a lot of damage and it reduces your armor by 50% for 10 seconds. So that's going to really increase the melee damage you're taking. Now let's take a look at gear. We want an extremely tanky set for this. Threat really isn't much of an issue because we can steal the Feral Druid's threat with Taunt if they start the fight, and with how fast Brutallus attacks, we get a ton of threat from Holy Shield. This is similar to Illidan, where we don't need very much spell power because he just attacks super fast and we generate a lot of extra Holy Shield threat. For this fight, I ran 100% avoidance with Holy Shield after reductions, Sunwell Radiance, and boss reductions. So at worst, I was blocking every attack so long as Holy Shield was up. You'll want to keep a close eye on threat because you can actually swap your weapon to a defensive statted weapon once you have a good threat lead. The Unbreakable Will with a 20 Agi enchant is the best choice for your weapon swap if you have this. Otherwise, any weapon with defensive stats will work. I really recommend using Emrus's Prot Paladin spreadsheet in general, but especially for this fight when you're making your set. I'll have a link to his sheet in the description. The sheet now has a feature to import a 70 upgrade set, so this is extremely easy to set up. Down here, you can change the boss to Brutallus. The main number we're looking at here is TMI 5. This is the average percent of your HP you will take every 5 seconds. We'd like this number to be as low as possible. Make sure you set your talents, buffs, and debuffs to get an accurate number. Ideally, your TMI 5 should be close to 100% for this fight. With how low of spell power we run on this fight, especially during the times we have a defensive weapon on, I recommend using Seal of Vengeance. You should also be spamming blessings on any open GCD you have for threat. Pick whichever blessing makes the most sense with your blessing assignments, but keep in mind that Blessing of Wisdom does not generate any threat. Cast your blessing on the class you have the most of, which generally is going to be shamans or warriors. Keep in mind hunter pets count as warriors. In this kill, I was spamming salve on shamans. As far as talents, I recommend Deep Prot even if you don't have an external sync, though external sync would be ideal. Survival is key here above everything else. Reckoning is very valuable on this fight since Brutallus attacks extremely fast. It will proc a ton and ease any threat issues you may have with your low spell power. Brutallus also cannot parry haste, so the one small downside that Reckoning usually has is not a factor in this fight. He will sync his attacks and attack with his main hand and offhand at the exact same time, which will increase the chance of leapfrogging Ardent Defender, but it is still worthwhile to have. It did save me multiple times. The spell damage is pretty minimal, so I don't think spell warding is worth getting. There are a few strats you can use for taunting Brutallus. The two most common are taunting every time the other tank has 3 stacks of Meteor Slash. The second is taunting briefly just for Stomp right before it comes off cooldown with an immediate taunt back from the original tank, on top of also taunting every 3 stacks of Meteor Slash. Keep in mind if a Stomp is coming before the 4th Meteor Slash, you can leave it on the tank with 3 stacks a little longer and taunt as soon as the Stomp goes out, but before the 4th Meteor Slash hits. The Stomp Taunt strat is what we used in the kill, and it will reduce damage taken by both tanks, but it has some downsides. Taunt swaps are dangerous for the tanks since healers have to swap over to the new tank. There also appears to be a 1% chance of taunt resisting on this fight, so with more frequent taunts in the Stomp Taunt strat, you do increase the odds of running into taunt resist issues. To deal with your own taunt resist, you can bop the other tank or have another pally bop them if you're second on threat to give you short-term aggro and enough time for your taunt cooldown to come back up. If they're taunt resist and they're second on threat, you can also Divine Shield to give them short-term aggro and enough time for their taunt cooldown to come back up. You can potentially use a well-timed target dummy to taunt a Meteor Slash too if needed, but this shares a cooldown with Nightmare Seed, which is extremely important for this fight, so this is a really last-ditch effort move. When you're not actively tanking on this fight and you're just DPSing, make sure you leave yourself enough mana so that you can do everything you need to when you're tanking again, even if you get some lucky avoidance streaks right off your taunt and you don't get mana back. Alright, so now let's watch the clip of the kill. I made a lot of mistakes on this fight. I played super bad. I think this was like my second attempt doing the Stomp Taunt strat. I just hadn't quite figured it out yet, and it was kind of throwing off my whole game. But I think I have it down now for live, so I got all the mistakes out of the way on PTR. That's pretty awesome. So here we're just running in, everybody's getting into position, making sure we get debuffs up right away. Thunderclap, Demo Shout, Scorpion Sting, those are all super important debuffs to have up. Make sure they never fall off. If you see them fall off, call for that. Make sure they get back up right away. Anytime we're actively tanking, definitely want to have Iron Shield pot up. That's a super important buff for this fight. With the strat we were using, we were taunting Stomp if it came up at a good time. I tried to taunt it here and I missed it. I was trying to get like a 0.1 second Stomp taunt, but I just barely missed it, unfortunately. So make sure you're taunting a little bit earlier than that. Don't necessarily try to get that perfect taunt timing there. Maybe taunt like 1 second before. And here we taunt because the other tank had 3 stacks of Meteor Slash. So that's the other time that we're taunting. And once it's on us, we're popping wings, popping everything. Prioritize keeping Holy Shield up and using Judgment to get the Tome of the Lightbringer block value. That's going to help you a lot with your survivability on this fight. Prioritize those 2 things and Consecration after that, and spam Blessing to get some extra threat as well anytime you don't have anything else to do. In these in-between times when we're DPSing, make sure your mana doesn't get too low, because sometimes you will get lucky. You'll just get a lot of avoids when you taunt, and you won't necessarily get enough mana back to do everything you want to right away. So there we taunted a Stomp, and then the other tank taunted back. Now it's our turn to take Meteor Slashes again. So we did our normal Meteor Slash taunt there. And here we took a Stomp. So this is a really dangerous part of the fight. When you take a Stomp, we want to use Nightmare Seed or Shadow Moon Insignia if we have them available if we're taking a Stomp. That'll just increase your chance of living by a lot, plus it increases your Ardent Defender window, so that further increases your chances of living. Here we taunt the Stomp, and other tank taunts it right back. Really, really important, make sure your healers have a few second heads up before you're taunting, and then call when you actually do the taunt. I was really bad about that on this pull. I just got super lucky and the healers had crazy good reaction times. So here, I made a really big mistake here. So the druid, he taunted to take the Stomp. The Stomp was not cast right away, and my taunt was actually on cooldown still here. So what needed to happen here, as soon as I saw that Stomp debuff go out, I needed to bop the druid here. If I bopped him, then I would get aggro back, and if aggro did return to him after the bop, then I would have my taunt available just to get it right back again anyway. So there was a small window here where I had an opportunity to bop the druid and get aggro back, keep him alive. I failed to do that. That was a really big mistake. That shouldn't happen. So make sure you're really watching carefully for things like that. And keep in mind, Pally Taunt is a 15-second cooldown. Druid Taunt is shorter than that. I believe it's 10 seconds. So they aren't always going to line up well together. So that's something the tanks need to communicate with each other. So here he died, and for some reason I even like pressed Blessing here. Like I didn't even, I don't know what was happening. I think I just panicked and pressed the wrong button or something. But the play there needed to be a bop onto the druid when that Stomp actually went out, since we didn't have our taunt cooldown before he died. So they actually battle resed him, and the other feral druid, he stepped in here and he tanked briefly while the initial druid got like buffed up and everything again. And I had some super embarrassing moments here, like trying to figure out how to set a focus macro without a hotkey. Because normally I have a hotkey, but on PTR, like I just didn't set one up. I was being super lazy, and I was like, I can just set it up. Like I can just like click to set it up like before the fight. Like the focus isn't gonna change, and then of course I make a terrible mistake. Druid dies, and then the other Druid has to step in. So I actually did need to change the focus during the fight. And at this point, I was like super jittery on caffeine too. So my mouse is just like all over the place. It was a nightmare. And this was about the time I was like, oh, we're actually going to kill this boss, I think. So I was like getting some adrenaline. I was getting super hype here because this was only our 13th pull. And I had seen other guilds wiping way more than that on this. So I was like, oh my God, we're actually going to kill this. This is awesome. So here, he let Brutallus stay on me a little bit longer after I got the 3 meteor slashes. So then before he taunted, I got the stomp, and then he taunted in time that I didn't get a 4th meteor slash as well. He definitely had this stomp taunt strat down way, way better than I did. But I feel really good about it now that I've gone through this and like looked over the video and stuff. So here we're just more DPS, making sure debuffs are staying up. This is the home stretch here. I had like SMI and Nightmare Seed, I think came off cooldown, so I just popped those near the end just for extra safety. And yeah, we got the kill. But yeah, that just kind of shows you like Prot Paladins can definitely tank this. I mean, I played this horribly and we still killed it. So, I mean, if you actually play it well, it's gonna be pretty easy, I think. So yeah, that's the whole fight right there. Hopefully seeing my mistakes helps you guys avoid those mistakes and saves you some wipes. I think watching mistakes often is just as helpful as watching something done right, just so you know what traps you can fall into, what to make sure you avoid doing. But yeah, I hope this was really helpful for you guys, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.